I got a lot of my precision in my left hand. His precision is in his right hand, and we've learned so much from each other. But it's hard being a band with him. Dave Mustaine hadn't been kicked out of Metallica. Do you think you would have formed Megadeth?
Yeah.
That would have been it?
Yeah, I would be playing with Megadeth and, well, with better vocals, though.
Better vocals?
Because, I can sing better than that guy.
Can you sing a little bit like Dave Mustaine?
I would not put that on any person.
Ever?
Singing like Dave Mustaine.
Guitar legend Kirk Hammett, after years at the age of 62, has openly admitted that there are a few artists from his era he's never exactly gotten along with in this video. We'll take a closer look at who those artists are and why they ended up on his most disliked list.
Anger with aggression, distortion, energy, rawness. We found each other.
Dave Mustaine. Imagine being thrown out of one of the biggest bands in metal history, only to rise from the ashes and build another empire just to prove a point. That's what happened between Dave Mustaine and Metallica, a story that feels less like a band breakup and more like a legendary rock tragedy. But at the heart of that story stands Kirk Hammett, the man who stepped into Mustaine's spot and became part of one of the greatest rock bands ever. The tension between these two guitarists is one of the most talked about rivalries in heavy metal. It's a story about ambition, pride, and the endless fight for recognition. Kirk Hammett didn't walk into fame easily. Before Metallica, he was just another guitar player in a local band called Exodus, chasing gigs across San Francisco's underground scene. Then came 1983, the year that changed everything. Metallica had just booted out Dave Mustaine after too many drunken brawls, arguments, and unpredictable outbursts. One morning, the band woke Dave up, handed him a bus ticket, and told him it was over. No warning, no goodbyes.
Busy stuff, overly complicated stuff, no. Super busy stuff or a lot of notes, unnecessary notes, no.
Just a brutal ending to what could have been the original Metallica lineup. Mustaine was shocked and furious. He had helped craft their early sound, written some of their core riffs, and suddenly he was replaced without a chance to prove himself. Enter Kirk Hammett. Calm, precise, and focused, he was everything Mustaine wasn't. Within days, Kirk was in New York, learning Metallica's entire set and recording on their debut album, Kill 'Em All. It was an insane amount of pressure, but Kirk delivered. His guitar solos added a balance of melody and emotion that helped define Metallica's sound going forward. But for Mustaine, that bus ride home became the beginning of a lifelong grudge. The bitterness didn't fade. Mustaine founded his own band, Megadeth, built on pure vengeance and talent. His songs were faster, darker, more aggressive, each riff a reminder of what Metallica had lost. He turned his anger into fuel, creating an entirely new empire just to show the world he didn't need them. In interviews, he often took shots at his former bandmates, especially Kirk.
What are you talking about? You're out of the band. I said, no warning? No second chance? You're not going to give me a warning? You're just going to kick me out? And I thought that was unfair. And it showed a grotesque amount of a grotesque lack of character.
He'd accused Metallica of using his riffs, stealing his style, and even copying his solos to Mustaine. Kirk wasn't a successor. He was an imposter. Kirk never really fired back in the same way. He didn't feed into the chaos. When Mustaine called him a mediocre guitarist in the late 80s, Kirk simply said he didn't hate the guy, he just didn't like the attitude. That's always been his way, calm under pressure, unwilling to play the same ego-driven game. While Mustaine's rage burned hot, Kirk stayed grounded, focusing on the music rather than the feud. Still, the drama never completely disappeared. Every few years, some new interview or comment would reignite it. Mustaine would claim he was cheated. Kirk would remind people that Metallica moved forward because they had to. The bad blood spilled into the media for decades. But in 2004, everything changed. During the making of Metallica's documentary, Some Kind of Monster, Mustaine sat down with Lars Ulrich and let his emotions pour out. He admitted that being kicked out of Metallica still haunted him. He wasn't angry anymore, just hurt. Watching that moment was like seeing a ghost of rock history finally exhale. Kirk wasn't in that conversation, but years later, he said he understood exactly how Mustaine felt. He'd always had empathy for him, even when Dave didn't deserve it. By 2011, the feud had mellowed into something almost peaceful. During the Big Four concert tour, Metallica, Megadeth, Slayer, and Anthrax, both Mustaine and Kirk shared the stage for the first time in years. When they performed Am I Evil together, fans saw something no one expected: laughter, smiles, even a hug. After decades of rivalry, the tension finally broke. Kirk later said he always respected Mustaine's talent, but he was proud of how far both of them had come. Yngwie Malmsteen. Yngwie Malmsteen has always been a name that commands respect in the world of guitar. His talent, his speed, and his obsession with technical perfection have earned him a reputation as one of the greatest guitarists to ever pick up the instrument. But with that level of mastery also comes a sharp tongue and a perfectionist's ego. So when Kirk Hammett mentioned Yngwie on his list of most disliked musicians, fans were not shocked. The tension between the two wasn't born out of rivalry or personal grudges. It was something deeper, a clash of philosophies about what music should really be. Yngwie's world is built around flawless technique. Every note he plays sounds like it has been carved out of crystal. He grew up idolizing classical composers like Paganini and Bach, and he brought that same intensity into rock and metal. For him, the guitar isn't just an instrument, it's an extension of discipline, control, and precision. His solos sound like orchestrated storms, every scale and arpeggio executed with surgical accuracy, but his confidence often crosses into arrogance. Yngwie believes in perfection, and he doesn't shy away from saying who he thinks falls short of it. Back in the mid-1990s, during a blind listening session for a magazine interview, Yngwie was played several guitar tracks from different artists. When Metallica's Master of Puppets came on, he immediately recognized the power and aggression of the song. He praised the rhythm section and called it energetic and raw. But when Kirk's solo began, his tone changed completely. Without knowing whose solo it was, he criticized it as messy and off-pitch. When he found out it was Kirk Hammett, he didn't back down. He said that for a band as powerful as Metallica, their lead guitarist should play with more accuracy and control. To him, Kirk's playing lacked precision. It wasn't clean enough, it wasn't sharp enough. In short, it wasn't perfect. For some musicians, a remark like that would have been a heavy blow, but Kirk didn't let it bother him. His philosophy has always been different. Where Yngwie strives for flawlessness, Kirk believes that emotion is more important than perfection. He often says that music is about connection, not competition. To him, a solo should make the listener feel something, not just marvel at the speed of the fingers that played it. Kirk's playing has always carried soul and weight. His bends, slides, and sustained notes often say more than 100 notes played in a second ever could. He believes that imperfection can be beautiful if it carries emotion. That is what makes their difference so striking. Yngwie represents precision. Kirk represents passion. Both are masters in their own way, but they speak different musical languages. Yngwie's fans admire him for his incredible discipline and technique. They see him as the ultimate craftsman of guitar playing, someone who never misses a note. On the other hand, Kirk's followers love him for his energy and emotion. They feel his pain, his joy, and his fire through every solo. He may not play as cleanly as Yngwie, but his music connects deeply with listeners. In truth, their disagreement reflects a bigger question in rock history. Should music be about perfection or expression? Yngwie believes a great guitarist must master every technical detail before thinking about emotion. Kirk believes that music comes from the heart first and the hands second. Neither view is wrong, they are just different ways of understanding art. Over time, fans began to see that this contrast wasn't a feud. It was a fascinating difference in artistic vision. Even though Yngwie's comments could have caused bitterness, Kirk never responded with anger. He once said that every guitarist has their own journey, and he respected Yngwie for his. He knew that they stood on opposite ends of the same musical spectrum. Where Yngwie chased precision, Kirk chased power. The difference between them wasn't who played better, it was what they played for. This quiet disagreement between two of the world's best guitarists showed just how divided the world of rock could be. Yngwie's fans worshipped his flawless technique, while Kirk's followers admired his emotional weight and sense of melody. Neither was wrong, they just lived in different worlds. Kirk never took Yngwie's criticism personally because he knew their musical philosophies would never align. Lars Ulrich. Then came the storm inside Metallica itself. Kirk's next major feud wasn't with another guitarist. It was with his own bandmate, drummer Lars Ulrich Kirk, and Lars have been through it all together. For over 4 decades, they've shaped Metallica's sound and survived countless creative battles, but behind the scenes, their relationship has been full of fiery clashes. Back in the mid-80s, when the band was still climbing toward fame, tension between the two was so bad that, at one point, the members actually discussed firing. Lars Kirk later confirmed that yes, they were serious. The drummer's personality, intense, controlling, often argumentative, had started wearing everyone down. That talk never went beyond frustration, though. Before anything could happen, tragedy struck. In 1986, bassist Cliff Burton died in a horrific bus accident. It shattered the band completely. The idea of replacing anyone after that was unthinkable. They stuck together out of grief, loyalty, and sheer survival. Years passed, but the creative tension between Kirk and Lars only grew stronger. When Metallica started recording Saint Anger in the early 2000s, their differences boiled over. The band was falling apart from exhaustion and personal struggles. So they brought in a therapist to help them work through their issues. Something unheard of in heavy metal cameras captured every awkward moment for the 2004 documentary Some Kind of Monster. In that film, fans saw a raw, unfiltered look at Metallica's internal chaos. Arguments about music turned personal. At one point, Kirk and Lars clashed hard over creative control. Lars wanted to experiment with new sounds and recording techniques. Kirk, the soul of the band's classic energy, wanted to keep things raw and pure. Their shouting matches showed just how hard it was for two passionate musicians to find balance when both believed they were protecting the band's legacy. But even with all that tension, there's something remarkable about Kirk Hammett. He's the kind of person who never lets bitterness consume him. One of their biggest clashes came during discussions about the new album's direction. Lars and producer Bob Rock wanted to make a statement. No guitar solos at all. They believed it would modernize the sound, make it heavier, rawer, and more aligned with the new metal scene dominating early 2000s radio. But for Kirk, the idea felt like an attack on his very identity. Solos weren't just flashy add-ons for him. They were emotional bursts. The soul of each song removing them felt like erasing a part of who he was. In the documentary, Kirk can be seen quietly but firmly standing his ground. He tells them that cutting out solos just to fit in with trends would make the album sound more dated, not less. It was a rare moment where the usually calm and reserved guitarist pushed back hard against his bandmates. You could see the frustration in his face, the tension of an artist who wanted to evolve but not lose himself. Years later, Kirk would admit that the experience was both painful and valuable. The fights forced them all to talk honestly for the first time in years. He told interviewers that, looking back, Some Kind of Monster was therapy, messy, awkward, but necessary. The film didn't just capture a band struggling. It captured human beings learning to communicate again after decades of silent competition. Exodus. But not all of Kirk's musical conflicts happened inside Metallica. Coming in at next in the story that hits much closer to home, his falling out with his first band, Exodus long before the world knew his name, Kirk was a 16-year-old kid in the Bay Area, obsessed with the growing thrash metal scene. In 1979, he formed Exodus with a group of high school friends, including guitarist Gary Holt. Kirk actually taught Gary how to play, and the two quickly became inseparable. They spent their teenage years rehearsing in garages, dreaming of changing the world one riff at a time. Then came April 1st, 1983, the day that changed everything. Kirk was literally sitting on the toilet when he got the call from Metallica asking him to join. The timing couldn't have been more bizarre, and the date made him think it was an April Fool's prank. But it wasn't. Metallica had just fired Dave Mustaine, and they needed a new lead guitarist. Fast Kirk had already seen Metallica perform live and had been blown away. Deep down, he knew they were destined for something bigger. So when he got their demo tape, he learned every song instantly. "I felt like this was where I was supposed to be," he said later. But when he told his Exodus bandmates, it didn't go over well, especially not with their singer, Paul Bailoff. Paul was furious, betrayed even in a drunken fit. He poured a beer over Kirk's head and shouted, "I can't believe you're doing this, Kirk!" What started as an emotional outburst turned into a physical scuffle, though it ended the way many of their nights did, half fighting, half laughing, half heartbroken. Kirk later said leaving Exodus was one of the hardest decisions of his life. He had started that band with his friends. They were his brothers. There was guilt, he admitted, a lot of guilt, but he also knew he had to take the opportunity. "I felt more comfortable in Metallica than I ever did in Exodus," he said. Still, things got messy afterward, because Kirk didn't leave empty-handed. He took some of his guitar riffs with him, riffs that ended up on Metallica's debut album, Kill 'Em All. But to Gary Holt and the rest of Exodus, it felt like a betrayal. Two songs, Die by His Hand and Impaler, had sections that later appeared in Metallica tracks. The famous line, Die by My Hand, shouted by tens of thousands of fans at Metallica concerts, had originally been sung by Exodus in Die by His Hand. Gary watched from afar, hearing his words echo through stadiums, and it stung. He wasn't credited or paid. Eventually, Gary called Kirk directly. He told him he felt cheated. Kirk claimed he thought he'd gotten permission years earlier. The argument left both of them with mixed emotions: pride, frustration, sadness. But over time, the anger faded. Gary admitted that losing Kirk felt like losing family, but he never stopped respecting him. Kirk was like a brother. He taught me everything. He showed me the ropes, he said. There were also deeper issues brewing in Exodus before Kirk left. By 1983, the band was changing. New members, new habits. Some started experimenting with harder drugs, and Kirk didn't want to go down that road. That distance eventually made leaving easier. And while Exodus struggled for years to recover, Kirk's career exploded. Yet, to his credit, he never turned his back on his old friends. Decades later, he reconnected with Gary Holt and drummer Tom Hunting. Kirk even guested on an Exodus album, proving that time and music can heal nearly anything. In many ways, Exodus represented Kirk's past, while Metallica represented his destiny. But his final conflict on this list would pit him not against an old friend, but against the future of guitar itself. Tim Henson. The last on the list is Tim Henson. We have a surprisingly modern feud between Kirk Hammett and Tim Henson, the young virtuoso from Polyphia. It all began in 2021 when Tim gave an interview that sent shockwaves through the guitar community. He said he tried to avoid what he called boomer bends in his playing, meaning the exaggerated string bends common in blues and classic rock solos. I didn't want my music to sound like that era, that boomerish sound, Tim explained. The phrase went viral. Some found it funny, others found it disrespectful. After all, those boomer bends were the same techniques that built legends: Clapton, Page, Gilmour, and yes, Kirk Hammett. For years, older musicians ignored the comment, but in early 2025, Kirk finally spoke up. In an interview, he said he respected Tim's technical skill, but questioned whether his music had emotional depth. He compared Tim's playing to a math problem, perfect on paper but missing soul. He even joked, would he call Eddie Van Halen a boomer too? Tim heard about Kirk's comments and had a surprisingly positive reaction. It's kind of a compliment and a diss at the same time, he said. He admitted he was flattered that someone like Kirk even knew who he was. Instead of firing back, Tim responded with humor, saying, "Take us on tour, dude. Let's talk about it over a beer." What could have turned into a bitter generational feud instead became a fascinating musical conversation. Some fans sided with Tim, saying modern guitarists shouldn't be bound by tradition. Others defended Kirk, arguing that simplicity and emotion are what make guitar solos timeless. In the end, it wasn't really about who was right. It was about evolution, the constant tug of war between innovation and tradition that keeps music alive. Kirk Hammett has lived through every stage of that battle. He's been the student, the rival, the teacher, and now the elder statesman watching new generations redefine what he helped build. And that's the beauty of his story. Every feud, every disagreement, from Lars and Exodus to Tim Henson, has shaped not only his career, but also the sound of heavy metal itself. He's proof that conflict doesn't always destroy. Sometimes it creates. So whether he's fighting for guitar solos, mending friendships from decades past, or challenging the next wave of guitar heroes, Kirk Hammett remains exactly what he's always been, the heart of Metallica's storm. If you enjoyed uncovering the truth behind Kirk Hammett's most heated rivalries, hit that like button and subscribe for more untold stories from the legends who built rock and metal as we know it.